Willie Hicks of Dynatrace. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for your time today. What challenges have you seen agencies come up against as they're adopting DevSecOps as a way of doing business, as they're building out DevSecOps environments and trying to cultivate them in their organizations? Welcome, Willie.
Well, first of all, Francis, it is a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you for the question. This is something in a space that I'm very passionate about, and get to talk to a lot of agencies across the public sector. So when I think about the question, and when I think about agencies as they adopt DevSecOps practices, there are a lot of challenges that come to mind. There are a lot of opportunities, obviously, and there are a lot of things that are being done right, but you are right. There are a lot of challenges, unique challenges, I think, some for the federal government. And in my view, and from what I see from the customers I work with, from the C levels at agencies down to working with developers, a lot of this stems from I would say, the entrenched processes that agencies already have. And just to be blunt, some of the cultural resistance to change that we see in agencies. And I want to be clear. I don't want to I'm not piling on the federal government. We see this. I work, I've been in this space a long time. I used to work in the commercial space. So we see that type of resistance for change in general. But this sometimes is more evident in the federal government. And there are, I think, some key obstacles that are there, but there are strategies that can be employed to really help overcome them. So, maybe I'll just list maybe a few of them and go through if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that'd be great because I think the struggles that I've seen agencies talk to me about, at least, involving the processes aren't just technology-oriented processes. So what you're
Yep.
seeing I think would be useful for people to understand.
Yeah. One of the top of the list I have, and I see, like I said, I see this from agencies, and I sit on a couple of working groups with the government around modernization and around some of these topics as well. And cultural resistance often is at the top of the list. It's probably one of the more significant barriers. I see it across all of government. I think sometimes in the DoD, I see it probably even a little bit more because often this cultural resistance is kind of centered around being risk averse and having a risk averse culture. And especially in the defense area, but you see this in other agencies as well, is that because this is understandable because the mission is so critical. All right. And oftentimes the consequences of data leakage and just doing things wrong are consequential. So they get used to they don't like taking a lot of big risks that could jeopardize the mission, and that is totally understandable. However, that in itself can stifle the agility needed, right, for DevSecOps. So that's kind of the framing of the challenge. Now, some of the strategies I've seen, and I reference back to kind of the DoD here because you see this in the Navy, I see this in the Air Force especially, with some of the software factories where they're focusing on changing that culture. They're focusing on changing it through education, through training. I think naval warfare centers, their software factory is emphasizing training and really motivating their personnel to really embrace and foster a little bit more risk taking, controlled risk taking, but a little more risk taking. And that's also handled through learning and continuous learning.
The way that they're handling those software factories, especially on the military side, is becoming a model for civilian
Mm,
agencies too, from what
right.
I'm learning about this process, Willie.
100%. And that's why I am glad you mentioned that because I'm not picking on the DoD. It's
Right.
actually, I think they are starting to be a model because they recognize, especially in the world that we're in today and looking at our adversaries and the speed at which things are changing, they recognize that they have to become more agile, but they have to still maintain some risk profile. They still have to understand how to do this, but understanding that they have to control that risk. So to your point, these are becoming models for other agencies on the civilian side and so forth. I think that's kind of the people, and I'm focused right now like on the processes and the people. and the training aspect, but technology also can assist in this. And I think it's part of that kind of that transformation that we're seeing. Technology, I think, is going to be key. We hear a lot about AI. AI sometimes is a little bit overplayed in my book, but it is really, I think, super important because technology can be put in place. I think, in my mind, observability and visibility is key in this process. As we try to lessen some of that cultural resistance, I think technology like observability platforms that are AI driven and AI enhanced can give those teams insight and understanding into the applications and the systems that they are maintaining and that they're changing and they're making. The DevOps processes and security processes are being implemented on with that visibility that they get. And they also have kind of the support of an AI layer that's helping them de-risk and actually see the changes they're making, understand the impact of those changes, understand the risk profile of the changes that they're making. It makes those iterative development processes that are being sped up a lot easier to quickly understand. Have I added or de-risked this? Have I added more risk to this? Have I added more issues to the application than I'm solving? If that makes sense.
It does make sense, Willie. Final thought. How do organizations measure progress to know that they're moving in the direction that they want to move in, that they're going to get better software built more securely?
Yeah. So again, I think that comes with, again, having that visibility. And that's a great question because I'm always advocating for visibility across the whole life cycle. And so if you're looking at, like I said earlier, I work with some modernization working groups and some DevSecOps working groups. And one of the key things that I like to focus on is the idea that you need a snapshot and visibility into that legacy system, into that system that you're, refactoring, whatever it might be you're doing. You need visibility and baselining of that application. So prior to the changes, prior to any changes you make to the code, to the application, to the infrastructure, you can actually have that quick comparison. And you can have AI there to say, okay, this is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like after. Here's your security profile. Here's your risk profile. Things actually got better. Things got worse. Things are the same. You can get that quickly. And if you're trying to do that manually, there's no confidence that you're going to get that right.
Willie, it's great to talk to you. I appreciate your time very much today. Thank you.
Thank you.